AI is all the rage, and Apple Intelligence is supposed to change how we use our Apple devices, but has it? On this episode of the Macworld Podcast, we talk about what Apple Intelligence offers, and does it even matter? And what does Apple need to do to make it better? That's all on this show. Welcome to the Macworld Podcast. I'm Roman Loyola, here with Jason Cross.
Good morning.
And Michael Simon.
Hello, sir.
Before we start talking about Apple Intelligence, there's actually a tie-in. Apple made an announcement this morning. We're recording this on Tuesday. They released an app called Invites. It's a brand new app that you can use to invite people to events that you are doing.
It's like a e-invitation app, basically.
Yeah. And it's more than just creating an invite and sending it. You can create a shared album so you can put photos in it. You can create a Apple Music playlist that's tied to the event. I forget what other features that they have in it. Those are the two that come to mind. Then you can use Apple Intelligence to help make the invite. Is this an exciting app to you guys? Are you guys?
I feel like you know very little about the invitation. You're not excited about this, Roman?
I haven't. It came out an hour ago.
Yeah, it was.
I haven't had a chance to look at it.
An hour ago. If you have a kid who's 3 and you have 15 years of birthday parties ahead of you, it's gonna be awesome. That's the big thing. Let's not pretend that that's the main thing.
When I was younger and I lived in San Francisco and you'd have more events or get-togethers or whatever, I probably would have used it more. It does the things all these invite things do. You have a list of people, you send them invites, they say, am I going? Yes, no, maybe. And there's a list and everyone can see how many people are going, the location. It shows the weather. They all do this stuff now. I guess it's kind of cool. It just feels like the problem with it is it's too tied to Apple. Obviously, you need an iCloud Plus subscription to create the invite. That I don't have an issue with. But if you don't, you'll get it, assume an email or something if you don't have the app, and you'll click it and it'll take you to the app to download it. I guess there's a web version, but if you're on an Android device, you're just going to go to a web page and say, am I going? Yes, no, maybe, and no shared album, no collaborative playlist. Does that work on Android? Apple Music is on Android.
But it says anyone can RSVP regardless of whether they have an Apple account or Apple device, which basically means you're pressing a button on an email or whatever that you get.
Yeah, it'll pop you to a web page. Right. It'll probably still show the guest list and the weather and stuff. But if I'm on Android, I definitely don't get the shared photo playlist, but do I get the collaborative Apple Music playlist if I have Apple Music?
I would assume if you have it on Android, sure. It's going to take you to Apple Music, and if you have an Android phone, sure.
Yeah.
That should work.
I mean, I don't fault Apple for making these things sort of Apple centric, but when it's something a service like this where I'm inviting 20 people to my baby shower or whatever, somebody's going to not have an iPhone. Outside the US, a lot of people are not going to have an iPhone. So it just probably needs to be, as long as it's a good experience for the non-iPhone havers to pop open a web page and it kind of looks like the app. It scrolls that way. It's very mobile centric and stuff. I don't know.
Shared albums is a thing that works on Apple devices. That's
right.
It's always done that. This isn't anything new. But
photo albums, yeah. This just automatically creates one for the event and adds everyone in the event to it, which is
cool.
A headache that nobody will bother to go through. Other people aren't going to
family members and a kid, grandparents, aunts, uncles, they're going to. That's
they may already be on it anyway. But I'm just saying,
Sure.
if you invite 15 or 20 people to something, you're not going to go through all of them and go here's a shared album, join and send out invites to all of them. That it takes care of that for you is helpful, but I don't know. I mean, there's a reason this isn't one of those apps that comes pre-installed on your iPhone. This is you know what this is like? This is what do they call it? Clips?
Yeah.
Yes. Roman's favorite app.
I was a big proponent of clips.
It's like that. It's not whether it's good or not. It's that it's just not something that other people aren't doing a perfectly fine job of, and doesn't need to exist, and doesn't need to be Apple centric, and doesn't. It's fine, but it's not going to set the world on
if
fire.
Apple is going to
Right.
charge for iCloud Plus,
Yeah.
it kind of needs every 6 to 8 months to come out with some other reason to stay subscribed.
Mhm.
And this is a fine little feature. I find the timing of it curious, like little after iOS 18.3, a little before the spring stuff. Like, why today? Not that I have a problem with it, but why? Like, what was the thinking there? Why early February?
Yeah,
Maybe ahead of Valentine's Day?
It does. It requires 18.3, I believe, but
It does, yeah.
why not just launch it on the day that 18.3 came out? Like that was the weird thing to me. But maybe it just wasn't ready with all the languages and stuff to be in the App Store. It is an App Store download.
So I'm looking at it as we speak, because I haven't had a chance to play with it either. I'm on the web, and when you go to create an invite, you get 4 boxes. The first one, you can choose an image and the event name, time, and the address. Then there's like a little note thing where you can tell them what it's about. There's an option to create a playlist. You click Add Playlist, and it automatically jumps to Apple Music. And Photos, Shared Album, same thing. If you click that, it goes to Photos. You type a name for your album. It's all very, very simple, somewhat, very Apple-y, where it's, obvious buttons to press. I could create something at some point and figure out like what happens on the other end, but I'm assuming it's going to be a very simple, straightforward email that you just press a button, just like an email.
Yeah, I assume if email or if you have the app installed, you just get a notification that someone's invited you. The tie into our topic here is that, like, if you're on an iPhone, that add an image thing, it's not just going to be the photo picker. It's going to let you use Image Playground to create, or actually it's got hooks into Image Playground the same way they do in the Notes app and stuff. It's not actually even jumping you out into the other app. It's going to be like, here, we're using Image Playground's hooks to generate an image for you for this event. If you want a bad AI image as your cover.
Oh, they're not so bad. They're okay.
They're really pretty bad.
Are they any worse than other AI illustrations? I mean, they're I think Apple went over the top to make them obviously AI, so people aren't confused into thinking it was drawn or it was a photo or something. They're not even close to being realistic.
In fact, they got rid of one of the styles, but there's like a sketch style and a animation style. That's it. Even then, the quality of the images is just Mid-Journey 2 from 3 years ago. Like, remember when it was new and you'd go to the website, you'd just type in everything you could think of. You're like, oh my God, it's so cool. It makes an image, but they were bad images. It feels like that. And when you use tools from modern developers, like even just Adobe's Firefly or something, just like typing in something, even if you restricted it to those styles and stuff, just its ability to make images that make sense, images that look good, images that reflect what you said in your prompt, just they're so much better. It's just not even close. I think it's in part because they're trying to run it on device.
I think that has a lot to do with it. And as we started, I think at their first round of things, they wanted to absolutely avoid any kind of screw ups, any kind of egg on your face situations like what happened with Gemini last year. Very obviously cartoonish, and I'm sure then second generation, third generation is going to be much more polished, and I'm sure it'll quickly refine itself. I don't
know that they're ever going to allow you to have sort of realistic photograph type images, and I see why they don't do that, but just the quality of all the things they do have just need to be a couple orders of magnitude better. And I think maybe when they start to scale up their private cloud compute, that will fill in that hole where you need better resolution. It just needs to be a much bigger, better model that can't run on your iPhone. It's just not powerful enough, not enough RAM, all that other kind of stuff. And then it could run in the cloud if you need to.
Right.
But they obviously want to use this hook everywhere, right? They want to use it. This technology is being used. There's the Image Playground app, but all of that technology is hooked into Notes. Now it's hooked into invites. Like, where else are they going to do this? Is Apple Music next? When you make a playlist, they've got a handful, 6 or 8 or something, like generic backgrounds. You can have it show 4 album covers or something, or you can have it just a generic image. Well, they'll generate one. They'll look at your playlist and all the genres and bands in your playlist, and they'll go, "Oh, this is band metal. This is classical. This is whatever," and it'll generate an image. You watch.
And also iMovie, Pages, Numbers, like all of their work productivity apps hasn't really taken advantage of GarageBand. Like, there's so much that they can do within those apps to really kind of, leverage what Apple Intelligence can do outside of just like the main system.
Yes and no. I'll say there's some of that in some places. Obviously, the writing tools stuff works everywhere, right? So like Pages and stuff, they're not sticking all the image generation stuff in there yet directly. Like, you can just use Image Playground and make an image and then drag it in or whatever, but it's not built in the way it is into Notes. But things like the latest version of Logic, it's not in GarageBand, it is in Logic. They've always had an AI sort of drummer thing that would build a drum sequence, and you could adjust its complexity and stuff. They've built that for other kinds of instruments, for like bass and keyboard and stuff like that. And it is all sort of generative AI for like MIDI sequence stuff of these accompanying things and stuff. And it analyze what you've played. It can analyze your track and do something that fits and all this other. It's actually it's a pretty cool use of that sort of stuff. So it's not branded, quote, Apple Intelligence, but it is an AI based, machine learning based system. It requires M series processors and all that other kind of stuff to work.
Yeah, and you can see like in Pages, like a prompt, like I want to make this document with these images, and like a template would come up using Apple Intelligence to kind of build that stuff.
I'm surprised templates didn't die faster in all word processors and stuff. Like, they have all these big lists of templates to fill in and stuff, and I just feel like you could say what you want better.
Yeah.
Like, where's my template generation AI?
So is that what you guys think Apple Intelligence needs going forward? More generative AI tools within the operating systems? Is that
the best parts of Apple Intelligence right now for me are the things that I don't have to do. Like the summaries.
Like, as much as the summaries are kind of hilariously wrong, once you know that it's a summary.
A lot of times they're not. A lot of times they're not. Like, I got a really long email earlier today. Sorry, Jason. I got a long email this morning, and a little 2-line thing popped up on my phone. So I didn't have to go read it. Like, I knew it was there. I knew what it was about, and I dealt with it in an hour. Previously, I would have had to click on the thing because it just says the center. Click on it, look at it, scroll through. Like, it's great for that stuff. And as Jason says, it does get wrong sometimes, and you have
just
to
the subject line and the first 8 words of the email or whatever it used to show. It is so often not enough for you to know what this email is about, because people have a bad subject line, or it's a lot of intro stuff in the beginning of the email, and by the time you get to like, what is this email about, you don't know. As long as you know that it's an AI summary of something, and you're not so reliant on it
a lot in 18.3. Like, before it would pop up and you weren't quite sure. Now it's clear.
It had that little tiny icon, that little summary icon. It was like a microscopic. So you're asking, do I think they need more generative AI stuff? I think the generative AI stuff they needs to be much better. I don't think the writing tools generate very good text. I think the summary works okay, but I think when it generates sort of text, it doesn't do a very good job. But I don't think that's not necessarily when I think, what do they need going forward? Like, other than fixing how bad some of the generative stuff is now, I think about autocorrect and how autocorrect is it getting worse?
I swear,
what the hell?
Yeah, I was just going to agree with you. I don't understand how every single iPhone update, it's harder for me to type, where I had to go back and things are like it doesn't understand context. It doesn't understand and it need like yeah, I agree. Apple Intelligence could really help in that regard by reading the whole thing that you just wrote and say, oh wait, that word's wrong and that word's wrong. Let me fix that. Like there are obvious things, and they'll change words to words like that I'll never use. And I'm like why did you add that?
It will correct a typo that makes sense if you think about
Yes.
the U and the I are next to each other on the keyboard, right? And so it made this word with the I, but that makes absolutely no sense for the sentence I'm in. It's ridiculous. The word with the U does. Like, so be that smart at least, right?
Yeah, and it feels like that's something that iOS 19 will be like a marquee feature. Because,
jeez, I hope so.
Like they have to, right? Like they're kind of building towards all that. I swear, predictive text was better in 2007.
Yes, I swear to yes, it feels like it's getting worse.
It's crazy.
So that's one of those ones.
All those writing tools are good. If you like, I rarely go down there, but when I do, they work well. The rewriting stuff, so like it's there.
Yeah, the rewriting, summarizing works okay. Like it's trying to autocorrect as you go. But I don't understand if once I've typed a couple other words, if you've autocorrected at the word 4 words ago and it doesn't make sense, change that autocorrect.
Call it post predictive text.
Well, yeah, I mean something. But I
agree.
It's sad that it's not a feature that Apple would market on. It's hard to have a commercial going like autocorrect's really good now, you guys. Right. But honestly, that's just judging by what I see on the internet
does on their phone. Yeah.
If you actually went out there, if you actually went out there and said, "Oh my God, you got to update your iPhone. Autocorrect is really good now." Sure. Everyone would rush to do it instantly.
Absolutely.
They should market on that.
And that's like again, the best parts of Apple Intelligence are the things that you don't have to think about, and that would be one of them. I do find like it's better when I'm in like, I don't know, Word or something, like a word processing program. Like it's like I feel like it's better there. It doesn't pick like silly things. Like it'll just leave a mistake rather than changing it to something outlandish.
So I'd love to see that. And again, this all comes down to what do we want to see this year or in the future? Just fix the quality of what's there a lot.
Sure.
Number one. But then number two is we're seeing this is coming in iOS 18.4, probably April, judging by previously released things. And it'll be when Apple Intelligence comes to the EU, is this new Siri, where two major features of the new Siri. One is personal context. It's going to look at your emails, your text messages, your contacts, your all this other stuff to just kind of build a profile of like, what is you? Where do you go? Who are you? Who are the people you know?
All on device.
Right. And importantly, it already has all that information.
Right.
Like you're like, I don't want Apple to know all that. It's already on your phone. If they want to know all that, they could. They don't. Sure. They encrypt it. They don't have the encryption key. They do that on purpose. So if you have to say, as an example, if you said to Siri, what time do I need to leave to pick my mom up from the airport? It would understand who's your mom. What do you mean pick up from the airport? Like it's going to go, oh, there was this text message of when they come in. They know what airport it is. It said what flight number they're on. It's going to look that up. I don't necessarily believe that exact phrase will work. Yeah. But that's the idea, is that it's going to build enough info about you.
They built a ton of attention, maybe perhaps unwittingly, by releasing it on its own in IT 18.4. People are like, it better be good. Because people have been waiting for this. And now there's those Gemini commercials where people are like, hey, I have to change the oil pan in my 63 Subaru. Can you help me? I'm like, yeah, sure. Do this and that. Like, it's not going to do that.
No, it's not going to do any of that because
it better be good at the things it can do.
Yeah, it's not a web searching like global AI like ChatGPT and all that other stuff is. And it's still not conversational. You still don't just talk back and forth to it like a person. It's still going to be like prompt, get a response. It's just going to understand the particulars of you, hopefully better, right? Is the idea. The second thing it does is so that's one thing that Apple's starting to do that later this year, but they need to go much further at that. The second thing they're doing is they're building a whole bunch of developer hooks called app intents that are hooks that developers can when they build their apps, it's a framework they can do that says, hey, when they ask Siri to do this, they can do that within my app. And I'll take the information that comes in and process it this way and hand it back to Siri.
That's a big change.
It's a big change. That stuff only really exists now for a handful of app types. Things like audiobooks and music and messaging apps. There's very little of those. They're building hundreds and hundreds of them for all kinds of apps. They need to expand on that a lot. That is an area where I think Apple has, number one, an advantage, and number two is not 2 years behind everybody else. The big two things going on in AI right now, like bleeding edge research stuff, is number one, reasoning AIs that don't to pretend to know think about something when it's just generating the next most likely bits of text. That's the way all these things work, right? Like, and that's why they don't know how many R's are in the word strawberry, right? Like they're not actually thinking, they're not actually doing math, they're not actually counting. It's just predictive text, really fancy predictive text. Now they can start thinking, right, about things. But the other is what they call agentic AI, which is an AI that's an agent. That's the name. And when I think about an assistant, and Siri is supposed to be an assistant, and Google Assistant, Gemini / is supposed to be an assistant, and these things are supposed to be assistants. Like, if I thought about a person as an assistant, I have a personal assistant, I have an administrative assistant, whatever. That's what they do, right? You'd give them tasks to do. Hey, buy my wife flowers for our anniversary and send them to the thing. And they know who your wife is and where they work, and you can tell them what to put on the car. They do more than just
turn the lights on when you enter a room.
Right. And not just immediately, right? Yeah, they do. They'll go out and do things for you, and they'll manage a calendar, and they'll remind you proactively about something that needs to happen. And a really good assistant will understand stuff about you so that when you say, hey, can you book a dinner reservation for my wife's anniversary? You'll go like, okay, their anniversary's next Wednesday. Their wife's allergic to shellfish, so it won't be a seafood restaurant. It should be a fancy restaurant. They're not going to drive 2 hours to go to it, so it's got to be near their home. They'll use these sort of things they know about you, like your location and all this other stuff that a human assistant would understand. So it feels like this is the tiptoe steps they're getting toward. And that's what all the OpenAI and all those other guys, that's what they're working toward. AIs that do stuff for you. And AIs that do stuff for you kind of require knowing something about you, or they're just going to do wrong generic stuff all the time.
Yeah, I mean, listen, Apple's not going to just unleash that type of AI onto its device.
No. It's going to start very simply where you can ask it.
Which
you can
start what we have now. Yeah,
you ask Siri to do a thing you might even have to tell it what app, but you do a thing in this, and it will do it. Hey, take the pictures from our hike today and send them to my mom. Right. And it will use the photos, get those apps, share them, send them in messages. It'll take care of this. Yeah, it'll start off simply, but Apple's huge advantage here is your phone is the biggest repository of personal information on the planet. So having that information gives them a massive leg up on all the other AI companies that don't have the ability to just access all the personal information on your phone. So I bet that's a big iOS 19 thing, is a much bigger expansion into not only the app intents and the personal context stuff, but the ability to do multiple things in one command, one request from one app, more conversational AI.
Yeah, I think iOS 19 is going to be a massive refinement of Apple Intelligence. I said it last year. I don't think Apple wanted to release Apple Intelligence.
Oh, it was super
rushed. iOS 18.
Yeah.
I think they had to. And that's why it's still in beta, and things are rolling out slowly. But I think iOS 19 is when everything really comes together. Like, they're definitely tackling it from a different perspective than Google or Samsung. Whereas it's, as Jason said, it's more of an on-device learning thing. And I think iOS 19, as we said before, when you don't have to think about it, is when it really shines. And right now, there's not a lot of that. But there's a lot that could be coming, hopefully is coming. I mean, it would be weird if Apple just said everything built for Apple Intelligence 1 year and then just kind of forgot about it the next year.
Right.
So I think it's a big thing going forward for at least 3 to 5 years.
Yeah, I think it's going to be part of all their smart home push. I think that's the next. That's the thing that's going to make an Apple doorbell, security camera, HomePad, all those things different from other ones. Is that they're going to have smart local intelligence that doesn't go out on the internet and all that other kind of stuff. The two things we know about iOS 19 is one, or we think we know, from reporting from guys like Mark Gurman and stuff, is one is that it is just like iOS 18. All these advanced AI features and stuff are going to roll out in updates over time. Like the next big iOS 19 Siri update is going to be like 19.4. So it's going to be like a year behind 18.4. And the other is that he's reported that the focus for AI in Apple this year is on improving the quality of all the stuff they have. And I really hope that's true. I guess all we want from Apple Intelligence is autocorrect to be really good.
That's the number one thing. Yeah.
They don't have to do any other stuff.
Don't do anything else on iOS 19.
The other,
it could be better Apple Intelligence things, more Apple Intelligence things built into photos, more auto editing stuff, more like kind of that like magic filters and magic
taking away backgrounds.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
which they do some of already.
Yeah, improving the quality. Improving the quality of what's there. I feel like the other place that things have gotten worse is Siri. And I don't just mean, we talked about all the advanced Siri stuff coming. I'm talking about the very basic Siri stuff. Mm-hmm. A great example, I think I don't remember if Mark Gurman wrote about this or he wrote about somebody else writing about this, but somebody asked who won the last Super Bowl 1, then Super Bowl 2, and Super Bowl 3. And Siri got like 60% of them wrong.
Yeah.
And I feel like, one, it didn't used to. Like it used to just, it was dumber, but if you asked it something that was in the database of stuff it had access to, like sports scores, it would be correct. And now it is just confidently wrong about stuff that should be a slam dunk. And it's like that a lot. Mm-hmm. So like, how did Siri get dumber?
Well, it's not just Siri; it's all of them. Like I've stopped asking even my Amazon one, the Alexa, for anything other than to turn on the friggin' lights because it's not. It's just I got to double check because I don't even know if it's right.
Although they, the person who first did this, they did ask Alexa and Google Assistant, or was it Assistant ChatGPT? I don't remember. They asked them the same ones, who won each Super Bowl, and they got them all right because this is like very public, easy.
Yeah, that's
sports thing. It's the Super Bowl. Yeah, and if you asked who won Super Bowl 60, it should correctly say, well, it hasn't been played yet, but here's who's playing and when the time is. And everybody else nailed that, and Siri got like more than half of them wrong. Like, how is it? It's like this for every topic area, everything. It's just bad now. Why? How did it get bad now? What'd you change? How did you not test
but the
it?
interface is so cool now when you ask for something. Like
I don't understand the QA process for Apple for some of these things. Like I feel like the QA process around these things may be around finding technical faults and bugs. Like they should have a team who comes up with 1,000 things to ask it.
They have to. That team has to.
That the developers. And the developers don't get to know what the questions are. Okay. It's only within QA. I think they probably know, and they build to the questions, and then it doesn't work. The QA has got to have a secret list of questions. It changes all the time, and it's got to get 99.9% right, or it goes back into the drawing board. Like
I mean, so you're like Tim Cook must use it and be like, "Wow, this sucks." Get me someone.
There's no way he can't.
Would have went ballistic on some of this stuff. Like, I don't think Tim Cook is like a glad handing, like, oh, it's not a big deal. Like he seems like a tough, very calculating CEO.
Yeah.
Like how is this stuff allowed to go on?
My favorite test is to ask it for information on a flight number. United Flight 83 or something. Right? Show me when does United Flight 83 take off or something like that. If you do that in Spotlight search, it gives you a beautiful card showing the flight and its direction and its takeoff and land time. And if you ask Siri, here's the information I found online, and then some links to a website. I'm like, but you know it. It's like if I do it in Spotlight search, you know it. I've been doing that for years, and they still don't do that. How? It's right there.
Yeah. And they have it. Like these things aren't integrated.
Asking for flight info is like a total everyday person thing. That's not a weird niche use case.
I mean, Apple has a whole sports app. Like that should have tons of data that Siri can get into. They should have stats and everything. And it's just not, I don't know, like one hand's not talking to the other.
It's the weird part to me is that it's not that Siri just says, I can't do that or don't know that. It just gives you the wrong answer as though it's right.
Right.
So between that and info that it really should know, and it just says, here's the results I found online, and it's, just a list of links and stuff, and just being wrong a lot, it just feels like it's just so bad. So my hope is that part of whatever they're doing with Siri to do the personal context stuff, like I hope that's all wrapped into a version of Siri on the back end that takes care of some of these other problems as well, right? Yep. Because it's not a personal context building issue, it's other things, but I hope the Siri they built for the personal context, they also addressed some of these other, like, my God, it feels like you were getting this right 8 years ago, and it's gotten worse and worse and worse.
I mean, whenever you think of Apple Intelligence, the first thing you think about is Siri. Like that has to be the number one priority to get right, to get rock
That's
solid.
The front door for everybody.
Yeah.
That's the key main thing.
The point is Apple ChatGPT is a placeholder. It can't become the thing that we talk to on our phone. Apple doesn't have that option.
Well, that does it for this episode of the Macworld Podcast, episode 920. Thanks to Jason Cross.
Thank you.
Thanks to Michael Simon.
Thank you, sir.
And thanks to you, the audience. Thank you for tuning in. You can subscribe to the Macworld Podcast in the podcast app, on Spotify, on YouTube at the Macworld Podcast channel, or through any other podcast app. Do you have any comments or questions? Send us an email at podcast@macworld.com or contact us through Blue Sky, Facebook, or Threads. Just search for Macworld and look for the blue mouse logo. Join us in the next episode of the Macworld Podcast as we talk about the latest in the world of Apple. See you next time.
Roman, you look like a villain in a YT novel, a YA novel, whatever. Yeah.
I just put this background up so you don't see my house. That's me right there. I don't know, over my shoulder. That's me. It's a reflection of me. So it was an exhibit at this museum in New York, and I was like, I'm in the Matrix now, so I took a picture and
the zipped up fleece thing and the hair and the light from above and you just look like you're just going to you're like you're gonna control the something in the
$1 million.